What's going on, Steffan?
Hey, Brandon, thanks for coming by and visiting. You're the first live human being that has come in here with intent to film.
Yeah.
I did have one other visitor in our hobby, but this is a rare treat. So I appreciate you dealing with rush hour traffic.
Yeah, that was interesting. I've never dealt with the as far deep in Chicago as that before, and it wasn't bad. It was just a lot of stop and go, and it took forever.
Well, yeah, 4 or 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
the holidays. And just for people's knowledge, I live right near Wrigley Field in East Lakeview. So Lake Michigan is right behind where we're sitting now. It's like a stone's throw. And I grew up in this neighborhood. I moved away for a long time, but now I'm back. I got a mom who's, needs a little help, and she's a few blocks from here. But I set up a fish room in what would be a butler's pantry or some kind of maybe a nursery. I mean, it would in this building, this one of these old big apartment buildings. There's no way anyone would have ever imagined putting a room like this in a place like this, but I did.
All right. Well, with that, let's let's kind of go around and see. I'll try and film these tanks best I can. I'm no professional, but and then you can talk about them a little bit, and we'll just kind of go from there.
All right, I mean they're all around us, so we're kind of wheeling and dealing here,
Yeah,
and
we can
Grant
do
will
a
find.
we can do a quick pan around the room here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've made the most of, it's a nice space. It's amazing if you think about the geometry of these aquariums, the rectangles and the squares. If you get out your measuring tape and you think it through, you can get a lot of fish tanks without, creating an impossible space. Because my family has to walk right through here uh, 20 times a day. So it's not lost in a basement or a garage. It is the center of this apartment. So that's a thing, right? And I had to really mind how I set stuff up. So, like a rack here, an old dresser there, just enough space. And I figured out, what's the biggest tanks I could have in the spaces that I have. And that's kind of how I operated. And I did one tank at a time. And I did it for effect. Like, I'm not a breeder like you are, and like so many people watching. And I watch those streams too. I love people who breed fish for profit or to break even, but I'm not that guy. I'm just like doing it to see how cool and beautiful and healthy a fish tank I could set up, right? And so that just is the lay of the land for these things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you want to start. Pick one.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here.
All right, so this is a 12-gallon bookshelf aquarium. It's made by Lifeguard Aquatics, and I always say this is a nice tank alternative to the UNS or some of the more costly bookshelf premium glass tanks. Well, this is a Lifeguard, so you can look them up online. And obviously, it's a super heavy planted fish tank, maybe the most robust in terms of plants, but there's a ton of fish in there, and they're all delicate nano species. I've got um, obviously chili rasboras.
Yeah, those are looking nice.
There's a group of 12. Uh, I have seen, them, a couple of them retreating to the corners to do their thing, but I've never found fry from that species.
Okay.
But all of these fish exhibit spawning behavior in here, and,
Yeah.
and can you blame them? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is a love hotel for small fish.
Are these clown killies breeding in here?
Yes, a
Yeah.
couple of them are from the breeding stock or that group, and I know there's a crap ton more that just don't make it.
Uh-huh.
I'm certain if I stared, like the way I found the first one was just I saw the little guy up at the top, and he had made it right, and he didn't get picked off by the other fish in here the micro predator of this one here. That's the
pencil fish.
yeah, that's called a dwarf pencil fish, or the I think marginatus nanostoma is the fancy name. That is really inexpensive, and some of these red pencil fishes at $30 a fish, you can get that for $6.99.
Nice.
And for those colors, I'm all in.
Uh-huh.
And there's a few neon red or neon green rasboras. They're up in the right there. You see them? These guys right there. Yeah. And there's autocats, there's pygmy coriodoras, there's nearite snails, there's mystery snails.
See the autumns?
There are neocaridina shrimp in here. Sometimes more. There's a wild one kind of tootling along. Many of them have reverted to their wild form.
So you're not culling in here at all?
No, I mean, it's hard to do anything in here.
I imagine. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it's a little higher, so it's easy to cultivate, for beauty, but to try to make this a producing tank would be super hard. I'm just delighted that the ecosystem is happening.
Yeah.
I run a small canister filter here. It's the Oase Filto Smart with the heater. So it's the smallest one they make with a heater.
Okay.
And then one of the favorite things I did was like lay driftwood across the top. This wasn't mounted. It's not. I just plopped it on 2 years ago, and over time, the mosses, the rotalas, and of course pothos in the back.
Yeah.
It became like an external part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, look at that pothos. I mean, that is a chunk.
And I had to cut it because I don't. This is one of my cheaper lights. It's just the Higer, right? The one they everybody talks about. And it's doing the job here. None of the plants need highlight. I have fancier lights and other tanks, but this one, I'm getting, the emerged growth from this is a classic rotala that looks totally different in the water, but out of the water it looks like that. And then the pothos has just discovered from out there down here, it's like come into here. So, and I manage it, but I don't really manage it because I love it.
Yeah.
So that's this tank.
Cool. All right, what can you tell us about this one, Steffan? So this one is right under the one that we just filmed, and this looks amazing.
Yeah, this is a crowd pleaser for sure. And it's right off the bat, it's overpopulated, but try telling it to these fish. They do what they do.
They look great.
So the theme was red and black, and that's mostly what I got going on in here in terms of the livestock. There are swordtails, mollies, and platies. Many of those species hybridize, but not all. And the results of that interbreeding, you can see the smallest fry to the juveniles to the medium to big fat adults.
Yeah.
And I can tell as I get older what exactly is the dominant gene. There was some German black swordtails, and they've obviously done their thing with some of these more other red ones, and I'm getting different variants, right? And then with the platies, tuxedo platies right here, I think that's one. Yeah, that's a tuxedo platy, but that isn't, right? And so you get confused. And I mean, I don't feel bad about the confusion because I'm getting the effect that I want. I think it's really cool. There's too many of them, and I will take the big net and just grab a bunch and take them to my LFS. I'd give some to you, but you got a workshop tomorrow. Yeah, and you can't, so that's the gist of the livestock. I've got fun oddballs like hill stream loaches. This is a reticulated Siamese algae eater. He helped me early on with blackbeard algae. And
then what is the silver one? That's a what?
This thing?
Yeah.
That's the algae eater. reticulated Siamese algae
Okay,
eater.
okay.
Yeah.
I heard reticulated, and I thought we were immediately talking about the Hillstream loach.
No, although fair enough.
I was like, man, I've never seen a Hillstream loach eat blackbeard.
No, that's the SAE,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And he was in another tank, but he was as he got bigger, I put him in a bigger tank. So this is a 32-gallon. You can get it at SR Aquaristic. They had a store in in Elgin,
Okay.
Illinois, and their brand is SRA, and they're a niche brand, and they make these beautiful with the German seal tanks. They're
Okay.
really nice aquariums, and their store is a killer. It's definitely a bucket list store.
Yeah.
Zoot says, and I can't say it right, but anyway, that's where I got the fish tank. It's run by an Iwagumi Thermomaster, which is below it back. You don't have to film it.
Yeah.
And like all my tanks, it's lush, right? That's why I call myself what I do. A lot of these plants in the front are just tops from plants from other tanks.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, in a perfect aquascape, you wouldn't even have them in here.
Yeah.
This would be the bare part, the stage. But I'm not a perfect guy, and I can't bear to throw cuttings away.
Yeah, I find it hard to throw stuff away too, especially if they're looking this nice. What kind of plants you got?
This is a super red mini. They're all tops from plants in other aquariums. The Ludwigia. This is Lemonfilia hyperoides.
Okay.
And the closer it gets to the top, the redder it gets.
All right.
Not an easy plant. I've got some mermaid weed here and some sturgeon repens, and of course the dwarf tiger lotus doing its thing.
Yeah, I love those.
This, when I set it up, Branton, was supposed to be like a river scape, so the water would push this way with the vallisneria.
Mm-hmm.
And before all these plants grew in, that is what it looked like. And then the only fish in here, and there's only a couple left, were white cloud mountain minnows.
Yeah, I seen a giant one.
So that was the only fish I had in here in the beginning. And it was pretty cool, but the plants started to get more robust, the nubius here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at a swap, and I saw like a group of these veal-tail swordtails, like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I pulled the trigger, and I bought a trio, and here's the result.
Yeah.
Right? So much for the hill stream, or, the river stream tank. It's now just another lush planted tank. By the way, vallisneria in the back. You don't need to put any film on the back of your tank. You don't have to do that to hide all your equipment. Just plant some vallisneria, and you got to mind it. And the last thing, maybe not the last thing, but what I'll say is, here's a tip. Instead of like cutting it, you just get a pull, and you will get the entire stem, usually. And not for the video making. There you go. So I do this.
Okay.
And I just thin the plant, right? And it doesn't hurt it, obviously.
Yeah.
And if I get half a leaf, that's fine too. But you do have to manage it. But it makes a great curtain in the back.
Yeah, I've got some val in one of my tanks, and yeah, when it gets tall and long like that, I find the longer it kind of hangs over on top of the water, the ends of the leaves just kind of slowly start to fall apart.
So when I get really long to the one side, I just pull the whole thing out like that. Nice. And it's we can't cut our hair like that. I don't have any hair, but it's a really effective way to do a trim, without getting in there and cutting and pulling out from the roots. So I do that with that plant. Mostly everything else except for that front row, I just let it completely do its thing. Yeah, there's a hyphen albino coreodora.
I think I saw a gold laser.
There's a few gold lasers in here, and there's actually some black. What do you call them? Schwarzei, which is German for black. They're all in there. When you love plants like I do, you do end up not always getting the fish effect. Obviously, not tell that to the live bearers. They're off the chain. But for some of these more reclusive fish, they could be gone for days, and then you see 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. And I don't know. It's like a new new discovery every time I look at the same old tank. So it's, that's exciting to me.
Nice. Did you want to throw some food in here? I want to see what.
Okay.
I want to see if these guys have. They act like they all want it.
Well, are you kidding me?
Swarm.
I got to pull them back here a little bit.
Yeah. Let's try that.
We'll get to where I keep all this stuff, which is why these guys can start to go bonkers, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like piranha.
Yeah.
A little rare kickback from. But yeah, so I just, and then, the babies, that's a cool thing about live bird. It's so easy to care for the young. You don't have to do much of anything.
Yeah.
But they're going bonkers. And I'll give them some more later. I don't, I'd rather have slightly hungry fish. I think it's better. But obviously with a plant mass like this and the bottom feeders, look at how clean that substrate is. And look at how much fish there are. So where's the crap? Obviously the plants are doing their number because the filter, no matter what you're running, it's never going to be able to handle a biomass like that.
Yeah.
So plants. I mean, if you're going for aesthetic, if you were breeding these for profit, it would be a nightmare because you'd have to try to grab a dozen or 2 dozen, and it would just disrupt everything. It would be a clown show. But yeah, it's funny how it used to be a White Cloud Mountain tank. And
is that the only one left?
No, there's like 2 or 3.
Okay. Oh yeah, there's another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I wanted to breed them and all that, but just some things. And there's a blue dream shrimp.
Yeah, I just saw him.
There's a bunch in here. When I clean the filter, I find 30 shrimplets at least. And I put a lot of them back, or I put some of them in other tanks. But there is a massive colony, and the weird thing is they're all blue in this tank. I don't know why they're not reverting to the wild or any of that, or red or anything. It's blue, blue, blue.
See, I found my blues to be one of the more stable lines for sure. I don't know why that is, but I've also found that with mine. It's very minimal culling.
And for whatever reason, they're pretty prolific. There's a couple of them there. They're not great examples of the line, but there's a really beautiful one, but it's off on a camera.
Yeah.
A lot of times if I sweep the net, there's a really shrimp. There's a bunch of them that will be up here. But it's hard to get a grasp. That's really shrimp land up there.
Cool.
All right.
Tank here.
All right, so this is an ADA, so that's a fancy glass tank, and it was a splurge item, one of the first aquariums I set up. This would be where a television would sit if I wasn't the man of this house, right? So no TV in my fish room, but I get this to look at.
Yeah, this is better than TV.
It's right on an old dresser where a TV used to sit in another house, another life. And I've got this, it's a 22 or 21 and a half gallon. So the extra is in height. So it's a little taller than most 20 gallons. And I had set this up with Sirius stone and massive ironwood, but that has long since been enveloped by the plants. And that's a theme of my fish room. I mean, duh. I'm just big on plants. They're like the coral. If I was a saltwater keeper, it's like corals are versus fish. Well, plants versus fish. And in this tank, I get a really good coexistence. There's a lot of nano fish in here. Panda Coriodoras, big group. Maybe they're breeding. I've seen.
I like the pandas.
I've seen very small ones that I don't think I bought, but I'm not 100%. And then I've got lamb chop rasboras or SB rasboras, which I think are the most beautiful variant.
Yeah, they do have more of an orange pop from what I've noticed.
that like bronze color.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And they, when I was a younger dude, those fish were expensive. Now they couldn't be cheaper. They're like $2.99 at even fancy fish stores. They're just inexpensive and they're awesome. I mean, look at that. They look like somebody art directed them. They're really cool. I've got some black phantoms, and when they're happy you get all kinds of different color variations from males to females. These are black phantom tetras.
Okay.
And then the rummy nose rasbora.
Yeah, those are really neat. I like those.
Yes, or sabwa resplendens. Those used to be very exotic and hard to find. Now they're relatively common. Prime time often has them at the swaps here in the Chicagoland area.
Okay.
And that slate metal is so cool. The gunmetal against the red nose. I think they kind of win in terms of their unrelated but similarly named rummy nose tetra. These are rummy nose rasbora. And I'm not even 100% sure they're a true rasbora, but that's what they sell them by.
Yeah.
I've got a group in there, and the females really conspicuously different. They're totally boring looking. I mean, they look like these two female guppies that I had to put in here because they were dropping too many babies.
Yeah.
So now they're in here, and their babies are probably feeding a fish. But the female, that's a female rummy nose rasbora. Could it be more boring looking?
Yeah.
But I always try to have males and females because they're, you know, I wouldn't be happy living in a world with just guys. And so if you have both in the tank, the males will show better. They'll jostle amongst themselves for hierarchy, all that. And if you take the female out, they don't have any reason to do that, so you won't get the color. Same with rainbow fish, and I think everybody sort of kind of knows that. These are,
I was gonna say, what are those?
Those are those a tiny barb, a golden barb. There's another word in their name. Okay. And I got those at a swap in a bag from one of the more common sellers. I don't want to get it wrong, but I bought those on a splurge. You know, it's the only barb I own. Okay. They are barbs. They're very gentle. They're really cool. Pretty peaceful fish. So yeah, this is totally a community tank. Obviously, I tend to lean on community tanks as opposed to species only, mostly because I can't resist something if I see it. You know what I'm talking about. There are so many plants in here. It's impossible, and I don't want to belabor the video. But you recognize a lot of them. I'm gonna have to trim these big fat leaves to stimulate the new small ones.
Do you try and keep that small for the most part?
Yes. Yeah. And then I've got, this is mermaid weed, which is my new favorite. And I never could find this. I put some crypticorn balancea in the back. I wanted to cover up this pothos holder. And now whichever of these two species ultimately wins is what I'll go with. Okay. And then I'll take the mermaid weed out if this becomes really robust. But right now they're both doing what they do to try to win that battle. I've got this beautiful hygrophila. It's Araguaila is what it's called. You need CO2. You need as much light and best conditions you can. It's sitting next to a bunch of bucephalandra. Nice. And on, right? And then you see how the moss is covered up. I do. This is my little holiday kind of bit. These are Ludwigia repens, super common. And then back here, this is Cypress helferi. I totally recommend this as an alternative to Vallisneria. It does the same thing, but it stays compact. Green, it doesn't take over the tank. That plant is just a little bit fatter than what I put it in, but it hasn't spread, which is key. Okay. Right. I don't want, like with Val I had in here, you'd start to see them coming up everywhere. Yep. And it was not what I wanted because that would be the end of it. I'm all about Valsnary. You saw it in my other tanks, but in this one, I wanted to be able to have everything in its place because I see this tank the most of all of my tanks. This is right in front of my chair.
Now, did we talk about, there's a gourami in there, right?
Yeah, true that. There's one honey gourami, and I use that for they're a great alternative to a betta fish because they're super peaceful and they're really, really colorful. Where is it? Where did you see him?
He's back there in the middle.
Yeah, in this Ludwigia. Yeah. I've got another tank with just one. It's one of the few fish that is happy to be by itself.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So, and betta fish is the other one, and you're playing, roulette with those fish. Mostly they work out though. I don't want to harsh on betas, but totally a honey gourami for $7.99 or $10. You get this explosive color in a gentle fish.
All right, Steffan, what can you tell us about this tank here?
All right, so this is a 20-gallon. It's made by Iwagumi. This whole kit, which is pretty sweet, was not available in the United States until recently. Now it is, and it's got all kinds of, magnetized tool holders.
Oh, nice.
Sliding. It's a great, great kit. And Iwagumi is, for the most part, a really neat company.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. That's the tech piece. It's a 20-gallon all glass tank, right? And low iron glass, blah blah. It's clearly ODing on plants, and part of that's by design. Part of it is this needs a trim for sure. And when you got a nice, beautiful light like these Chihiros, and CO2, you're going to get explosive plant growth, and that's what I'm getting here. And some of these plants are common, but many are not. The Hygrophila erugia on both sides is a pretty exotic, at least for me it was, but I've got it magical here. And this carpet is crazy.
Yeah, that's really
these
neat.
are just micro swords, like Calanthium tellum. And then you see a lot of the moss gets in there and I have to pull it out, or I just leave it because it's healthy. But there's this is golf course like. It is like, not, what do you call it, the fringe right off the green. So it's not a total feathery green like a putting green, but it's that part right outside of it. And it's spongy and perfect, and there are lots of little shrimplets and things that save themselves from these fish. Whether we see them or not, I don't know. I'm gonna feed.
Okay.
Because this tank, the Achilles heel of this fish tank is so many of the fish in here, I don't see them right now. Yeah. They're all in the back. I've got these wonderful, I'm putting live baby brine shrimp in here. The guppy, or these are endlers, and they're called black fire endlers. And I got those from a guy who sells in the swaps here, Kuma Aquatics. He's a husband with a wife and a kid, just like you. And he takes this fish and he breeds these, and I thought they were as cool endlers I've ever seen.
Yeah, those are really neat.
I thought they were stunning, and yet they're the only ones out here except for these show-stopping longfin albino correadoras.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Those are so beautiful. I bought a bag when they were tiny, and I just thought, okay, longfin albino correadoras, we'll see. And it turned out really, really nice. If you start to look with the food in there, you see gold tetras.
Okay, yeah.
And they're glimmering like coins. And then there's green
pencil fish.
The common kind of what do you call them? The red Bexford pencil fish. Okay. And then green neon tetras. All that's in here. I swear, I'm not lying. It's all in here. And then there's another honey gourami.
Oh, yeah.
But I've got super red down there that's been trimmed, Pogostemon octopus, Ludwigia repens, and then the easiest stem plant of them all, Lemonphilia sessiflora. You might start to see, I've got these Bloody Mary shrimp in there, and I've got a mono shrimp. I call those they're Godzillas. They get so big in this tank.
They do get big.
You know, the great thing about feeding live food is, well, there's a lot of great things, but they're a natural. I mean, look at this. This is a natural color inducing food, right?
Yeah.
You get the reds, you get all that vigor, and the fish obviously thrive with the high protein and then the no processed anything. So I generally strain it through a net and put it in, but for
Uh-huh.
the sake of this,
Yeah.
I'll just feed it like that. This, by the way, these little magnet moss racks, this is a really good hack. These are like $5 or $6 each on Etsy or eBay, and they just stick to the side of the glass. And this is just a print on demand screen. You can jerry rig it if you want. The moss grows so thick and robust. If you wanted to sell it for profit,
Yeah.
you will get a ton. I mean, dude, all of this I picked off of that. Look at that. I mean, so
Nice.
moss
So
is,
what was it doing? Just like hanging down, or was it growing up or
I had some,
crossed, or
I like everybody, I started growing mosses on little rocks at the bottom. I don't do that anymore ever.
yeah.
I just use these really cool racks.
Yeah.
And then especially you who breed shrimp. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's a few hanging on it right now.
Yeah, yeah.
They love it. You get sell the moss, and
Uh-huh.
because the flow goes all the way up and through, and it's
Keeps it.
closer to the light, it's really pretty clean.
Yeah, it
I
keeps it
mean,
clean, I imagine.
yeah, I mean, I seen a little bit of what I don't think is perfect, but
Uh-huh.
it's not algae. It's just not great stems. It could even be an errant piece of Java moss, which I don't like as much as Christmas or willow or flame moss. But
Yeah.
yeah, no more mosses as part of the aquascape. I just use it on these magnetic
Mm-hmm.
racks, kind of like, when you put a plant in a windowsill or something. It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of, and you just get more bang for your aquarium,
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, the shrimp are starting to feel themselves and come out. Uh, Mostly Bloody Marys in here. There's some neorites, pygmy coreodoras. You see the white ones. Unfortunately, now the brass tetras are starting to get a little braver. But when I trim this and give it a serious haircut, that's when I get the full fish activity. There's a little pleco. Did
Yeah.
I put this one in here? No. I have a long fin. I thought maybe I put a pair in 2 years ago, and this is a young one that somehow has just become part of the tank.
Huh.
So that's this fish tank.
All right.
All right.
All right, Stefan. So what can you tell me about this little tank here?
So there's a niche in the hobby, a niche of jar aquariums, vase aquariums, terrariums, and this is my one take on that. It's a vase from like Pottery Barn that was in my wife's, where there's a bunch of vases. I had this little kind of space in the fish room, and so everything in there, it's one plant, just Bacopa, Minari are the most common Bacopa. All those were just cuttings from other aquariums, and I wanted to see if I could get one species to come up in and out of the tank. And when that did happen, and it flowed over, but eventually as the flow over from the Bacopa got away from the light, it started to wither. So I've just cut it all down now, and it's starting to break the water. And I'm guessing by springtime, if not way sooner, it'll be up and over. Now there's a bunch of random shrimp and some snails in there, and a couple baby endlers, and that's it.
Okay.
I was able to find this neat little spot. It also allows me to light this moss here, which
Yeah.
I can use, uh, and so it's oddly close to my chair, so I'm always staring at it.
Uh-huh.
But I could put I might try a different, like super red Ludwigia only,
Yeah,
just only that.
that would look cool.
Yeah, so I think it's fun to play around. This is just a little project tank.
Awesome. All right, Stefan, here's the next one that you can go ahead and explain here.
So this is like the lowest tech tank by far in this fish room. It just has a sponge filter and a couple extra lights that I sort of, one's hung and one's sitting on the little what's left of the lid, and then pothos out the yin yang every which way. This is hornwort, and then Anubias and obviously a ton of gold endlers, right?
Yeah.
They were got them in a swab, a bag of 5, and they breed 100% true. So if you're seeing guppy or endlers that are not gold, that's because I put them in there and they're not that strain. But these little gold endlers, I just had nothing else in this tank but shrimp and scuds and things like that, and I wanted to do something, and I wanted it to stay super small, and these endlers fit that bill. Obviously, they're doing what live bears do. I've got a ton. I call this a lot, and I use the babies. I'm sorry, but I do use them for fish food, and I will happily give a bag to anyone who wants to visit the fish room, including the guy who's filming right now. But he's not going home for another day, so they can't sit in his hotel room. I got my little crew of ottos and the occasional nearite and mystery snail living their best life in this crazy tank. The only tank where I've got hornwort.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of I use a lot of hornwort.
Yeah, that's
in
great.
my breeding tanks. It's really nice.
Some people complain that it drops these little needles. I never have that problem.
I've never had that either, honestly.
But really good fish keepers and aquascapers, it might be their water. It's hard to say, but they do really, really well for me, and they do really, really poorly for some people. But hornwort's a no-brainer for the most part.
Yeah.
There's that's one of the old ones. Whoop, and then the male, the gold.
Yeah, those are really pretty.
They're black bar endlers that bred leucistic, I think it's leucistic. And the guy who bred them in Florida was able to get 100% into that strain, and that's where those came from. And these regular ones I put in there, so I'm not lying. Before those ones, they were all that lovely gold.
Cool.
So that's that.
All right, Steffan, what can you tell me about this one?
Okay, so this was intended to be
So this is right next to the one we were just at.
And we're on the lower rack here. This is 12-gallon aquarium from that company, SR Aquaristic in Elgin. Beautiful fish tank. But for a setup like this, it wouldn't matter. I could use a Petco special because this is based a biotope, right? It was a biotope inspired fish tank to look like the backwater of an Amazon rainforest where the flood comes up and down. You've got botanicals, and I did all of that. It over time has become more of just another planted tank in Lush and Salty Aquarium. Just another planted tank, but it still retains a lot of elements of that Blackwater biotope inspired. The neon tetras, look at how fat they get with live food. That's crazy. They're obese. But in order to feed these fish like the long nose, what do they call those?
Are they the half beaks?
The half beaks.
Yep.
God. The half beaks, but moreover, there's licorice gouramis in here.
Okay.
And they only eat frozen and live food. So I try to take care of those fish. There's a licorice gourami. See how it looks like a dead leaf in silhouette back there? That's a licorice gourami, and they're living their best life in here. But there's another one. That's like a pair. The males are darker. But anyway, to feed them good food, these pigs take it first, and they became super fat. I mean, look at those neons. And if I did a do-over, I could try to take them all out and just get really into the legitimate quieter vibe of a Blackwater. But sitting in my chair, I'd never see those licorice gouramis, and sitting in my chair, I wouldn't see the half beaks, but I see these guys. And so from my chair, looking down and into this, I get to see those neons. That back color is UNS makes this thing called the Atmos, and it's a color screen, and you just clip it to the back of your tank, and you can control the colors.
Okay.
I mean, this is so badass. Watch.
Yeah, I think
I mean, how much fun is that?
Yeah.
Right? Now, I tend to keep it like in this territory because it feels like tannins.
Uh-huh.
But it was fun, right? It was new tech, not critical to fish keeping, but I thought it would be fun. So you see the half beaks,
Yeah.
and you see Morse code tetras. Those are those kind of that gold silvery one right there. And
Okay. Yep.
the reason they're called Morse code tetras is their fins flick like you're doing an old time
Okay.
Morse code, like da 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 da.
Yeah.
And the colors look like the dot dash dot.
Uh-huh.
So one of those two reasons is the reason, but I've heard both, and
Okay.
there's a couple of those. You don't see that tetra very often. So if I add more botanicals, I could get this back to being a more legit Blackwater. But right now it's inspired by Blackwater tank. And obviously that means tons of surface plants, uh, things hanging in, dead leaves falling in, all that I let go in this aquarium. Otherwise, Anubias. And then this is Crypticorn parva.
Okay.
Which is really cool because it forms a pseudo carpet. It doesn't dominate like a hairgrass. So you see the substrate, but it will grow across the expanse of the tank.
Yeah.
And I thought that effect was really cool because you can still see the bottom, and yet you also get a carpet, and it works. Hairgrass in this tank wouldn't work. The light just wouldn't be able to cut through the top stuff, the tannins. None of it would be conducive to a good carpet. So using a crypt for a carpet was a cool idea, and it seems to have worked in the industry now.
Yeah.
I'm pulling a dead leaf, but if it fell in the water, no harm, no foul.
Awesome. All right, Steffan, what can you tell me about this tank here? So this is next to the one we were just at.
All right, so you had the filming guy is in a very tight spot, so I'm here. This is a UNS 25T. It's a nano tank, but imagine a 5-gallon Petco aquarium tilted on its side, and that's the footprint for this aquarium. Now it's the low iron glass UNS thing. Totally needs a haircut, like a lot of the tanks we're looking at in this video, but you get to see what good light and CO2 can do. I've got Rotala on the right. I think that's Atra. I could be wrong. There's some of that Bacopa in the center, which grows true straight up, right? And the integrity of the leaves is wonderful from top to bottom. And then on the left is some super red mini, which I will pull those tops. I'll cut those tops and use them elsewhere. I mean, everyone loves that plant. You don't need CO2 for it, but without it, you won't get the super red. You might just get the red. Okay. And then I've got some hairgrass at the very bottom. It makes that little feathery carpet. You can see how shaded it is. That's not because the light sucks. That's because all the stuff on the top is it needs to be dealt with. But so far, so good. And then there's some Blixa japonica, the two bigger grasses on either side. And then Bucephalandra in the center, and you see one flowering. So I've got Ember Tetras in there. And there's a group right in the center, and they're fat and happy. And then up top, I've got some Santa Maria Endlers, another beautiful strain that I just became, infatuated. They're a lot like the other kind, but I was really liking the black and red. That vibe for me was working at the time, and so that's what's in this tank. Oh, and if you see any, there's some albino pygmy coriodoras, which are super hard to find. I've got about 10 of them. And on the video I posted of this, you will see them. I'm sorry if they're not coming through now. They're like the most exotic fish.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen.
Oh, that's too bad.
Albino corys.
Getting it here.
It's all right.
Maybe we can solve that some other way.
Yeah.
But trust me, they're in there. But it just proves that fish tank needs a haircut. But they're more reclusive than even the regular pygmy corridors. But sometimes 5 or 6 are right out in front. And honestly, from 3 feet away, it looks like They are very small, but they're completely white as you would expect. And I don't know why I'm talking about something you can't see.
Me about this one.
All right, so this is the newest tank in my fish room. It's my take on the Iwagumi, the Japanese style of Iwagumi means rock formation. So no driftwood, a rock-based hardscape, and then a minimal amount of green plants. I mean, those are general rules for the aquascaping style. So I chose some microsword in the front, which I pulled from one of my other tanks because I love how easy it is. And the carpet, you can see after 1 month, it's already pretty nutty. So mission accomplished. And then I've got Anubias Petite sort of in all the crooks and crannies. Now that still floats up from time to time. It hasn't become established. And then in the back, I have everybody's frenemy pearlweed. And my goal with the pearlweed, and I'm going to cut it all. I'm going to keep it cut and just use scissors and cut it down to kind of go along with the line of that hardscape. And the coolest thing I think about this hardscape is the sort of foreboding nature of the cliffs. That's Sirius stone, a commonly used stone in aquascaping. You all know what it is, but like I feel like this is almost like a Mount Rushmore. There's 5 faces. I mean, I'm pushing it, but that's sort of the vibe or the effect I wanted, like a Mount Rushmore with just green. Yeah. Right now, am I tempted to use super red Ludwigia? Yeah, instead of pearlweed, it would be awesome, but that's not in keeping with the true intent of an Iwagumi. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I do have a fun little CO2 delivery system. It does not have a solenoid, so I have to turn this lever before I go to bed to turn it off. Okay. Because you don't want to run CO2 at night. It's first of all pointless, and second of all, it could be dangerous. But mostly it's pointless. There's a ton of neocaridina, mostly fire red cherries of mixed grades, and there's a bunch of different kinds of snails. There's these ivory mystery snails. There's horn neorites. There's a bunch. So what I did is when I first set up this tank to keep algae away, I threw in a bunch of cleanup crew and nothing else. Now the fish are all male black fire endlers. I had males and females of the species in other tanks, and when they started dropping fry, I thought when I set up the Iwagumi, it would be fun to just have the males of that fish in here and no other fish. And so far, so good. The black and red has, I think, an Asian vibe to it. I don't quite know why. They sort of look, and endlers always look like origami. Those cut angles, that little and so I was trying to stay within the culturally appropriate to the Iwagumi thing, best I know how, and so that's where I'm at with this newest tank. There's things I could get better with, and I'm not sure how that pearlweed will turn out. We were joking about it. It could become my worst nightmare real quickly.
Yeah, because that stuff grows like mad for me.
And, the Nubia still floats up. It hasn't stuck in yet, but I know with time that will get better. And I'm using a hang on back. That's the new Fluval hang on backs. They are really nice. Okay. It's quieter than anything else in the fish room. It has everything you want to be able to manipulate the media you want to use. And I think it's a winner. I don't do product review stuff on Lush and Salty once in a while, but thumbs up with that. And I've got the ONF. This is the classic ONF Nano light. It's iconic, that shape. That's to them. Now Chihiros and others have stuff like that, but that's and it's all set. Everything in my fish room is automated mostly, not the CO2 here, but mostly because I, I'm just one dude.
Yeah.
Like you are, like a lot of you watching this. So automation, timers, apps, whatever you can to just let your fish room do what you would otherwise have to do.
Yeah, at least some of it, I feel.
Yeah, no, my motto kind of is I always got my hands in the tank because I'm always, so I believe to interact with your aquariums is part of the pleasure of the hobby. So I don't want everything to be, like a Petco where people go away at night and some shopkeeper comes in and turns on the lights. No, I'm way more interactive, but still, you still want your lights and your CO2 calibrated. And once you get into that, you might as well have timers for all your lights because you don't want one off, one on, and all that. Blah blah blah. So that's this tank. All
right. So now this is the. I'm not going to call it the last tank in your collection, but this tank is not a part of the fish room we've just come out of. This is in your dining room?
That's right. It's in the dining room of my house here, my apartment here in Chicago. So it's the only concession that my family made, aka my wife, to bring in a fish tank outside of the fish room. And it had to be sweet, and I think it is. It's like this is the mother of all my fish tanks. That's what I call it. It's the 135 gallon freshwater display tank. And I was in there, I had a little help, obviously bringing the equipment and stuff like that. But basically, it's all me now in this. And it's run by a Sump. It has multiple lights. So it's the most evolved ecosystem. There's a lot going on. And it's guilty of having too many fish by any measure if we're looking at the rules. But again, because I'm really on top of it, and because the plants and the way I filter it, I can have this intense group of different kinds of fish. And you can tell, I mean, they seem peaceful, even though we're standing in front of them, which usually is a cue for them to go nuts. And, they are and they aren't. They're happy. I got 4 big angelfish, real common. These have spawned from time to time, different pairs. Nothing's come of it, not in this tank. Not with bruiser rainbow fish like that, or a opaline gourami. And look at that Siamese algae eater. That thing is a game fish. You could catch that in Lake Michigan there. I mean, you can't, but you know what I'm saying. It
almost looks like a high fin sucker or something like that.
Yeah, like something you get as bycatch when you're fishing. So the other SAEs in my fish room from the same 3 that I bought that were this big, and that's how you give them enough room. They just get exponentially bigger. So when you're buying Siamese algae eaters, you will have a reckoning. You will have to understand that they're going to get big no matter where you put them, but especially in a bigger tank. But he's fine here and he does a good job, and there's no blackbeard algae, right? And he's got to be part of the reason for that. I actually have a little bit, but it's on a dubious, and that happens. There's rainbow fish. These are millennium rainbows, a trio.
Cool. I don't think I've ever seen those before.
And I mean, that shape looks like something a kid would draw, right? Like, here, Daddy, I drew you a fish.
Yeah, I've got a few of them. Not quite as round as that, but
I mean, look at that thing.
Yeah. Now that happens with age, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they get more, like, maybe not beautiful, but more interesting looking with age. Hopefully, you say the same about us. These are the most underrated rainbow fish, if fish in general. These are dwarf neon rainbows. The male has orange, the female is yellow. And people, when they see them at a Petco or something, they just look like little silver, but yeah, look at that shimmer. I think even your iPhone is going to pick that up, and I think they're stunning. And if I had just 80 of them in here and nothing else, I think I'd be pretty happy. But clearly there's a lot else in here. I've got the Harlequin rasboras. That this is where they click, and then cardinal tetras. I mean, look at that shine. I mean, everything has found its place here. The live bears in this tank were intended to be fish food. When I put little babies in, many got eaten, but many escaped, and now they're part of the community. So these black mollies were never intended to be there. There's some down in the sump too. There's some of these baby plecostomus, of which there's a mid, like a young adult, there's an older adult, different kinds, there's another medium adult, and then there's a baby. They're everywhere. And there's super reds in here, long fins. You see a big male. Yeah. So it's nuts. I mean, there's no mate. I guess if there's a focal point, it's this really cool sword plant here. And that's dominating, kind of creating a flying V out of the aquarium. And I'll open the hood here.
So that's a sword plant, huh?
Yeah, now look.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is neat.
It's even flowering. I mean, look at this thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so I used to have a little bit of, there were lids for this. But when these started pushing up, I just said, you know what? I'm gonna go all in on this plant thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't put the lids back. So yeah, there's more evaporation. But
Yeah, I don't run a lot of lids on my tanks.
I'm a non-lid guy.
Yeah,
I don't think I have any.
It just seems like it's extra work to me, which is one of the main reasons I don't.
I'll put some food in.
Yeah.
See what happens. Come on, boys. Yeah. So it's boisterous, it's fun. Let me put a little on the other side here.
Yeah. Yeah, watching rainbow fish eat is some of my favorite fish to watch eat.
We were talking earlier, this big bull here has a bruise on his
All right, so my phone was being dumb there, Steffan. Sorry to cut you off when we were up there, but yeah, let's check out the sump.
So yeah,
it's back working.
These are like what I call the aquarium under the aquarium, and I think if you can make a sump happen on one of your bigger tanks, it's totally a great thing to do for so many reasons. It's fun. There are shrimp in here, baby fish in here. Some I put in, many I did not. And look at those roots. All that is pulling crap from the water on the tank above it. And then the plants, water sprite, that's what it looks like out of the water, the pothos. This is a mangrove.
Okay.
I've got biomedia in there and the sponges, and the water comes down and through. And it's called a refugium in the saltwater hobby, the part where you put the algae, you'll put plants in a saltwater tank to eat the algae.
Okay.
And so it works sort of like those UV lights, but this is the organic way to do it. And I don't have algae in this tank or any of my tanks, and it's not because of nothing, right? It's got to be this doing that. This is 40 gallons, or maybe it's 60, I forget. Okay. This is 135. It looks like it could be 60.
Okay.
And I got a lot of tech in here, and I don't want to belabor the video with all that. But you can get these pre-made, or you can make them yourself if you're handy with just like a 40 breeder. You could make this system with a 40 breeder and some knowledge of plexiglass and a few power tools. You could create basically this.
Nice.
And if you're inclined, I'd say go for it. It's a win.
Cool. All right, guys. So that was every tank over here at Steffan's. I'm very appreciative that he allowed me to come over here and film this. It was very enjoyable. There was a lot of conversation off camera that you guys weren't able to hear, but my time spent here has been awesome. I'm going to go back to Steffan, and we'll kind of have some closing words out of him.
All right, everybody. I appreciate this visit. Super fun to connect with other people in the hobby. It's rare that we do it actual. Yeah, so many live streams and all that, which are wonderful. But this was pretty special. I enjoyed it too, and I want to thank you for spending some time with me in the fish room and checking out my tanks through Branton and his channel. And before we go, I wanted to highlight this fun wallpaper because my wife picked it out. You got to have a simpatico relationship with your significant other.
Yeah, it is
And
really neat.
she was like, if you're going to do whatever a fish room is, then let's do a fish room. And, if you can allow your children and your wives into this hobby in a joyful way, I strongly encourage it because down the road you're gonna want to call those chips in, right? Because now she feels a little vested, like I had something to do with it, and that is a bonus. That's a win. So again, thank you for coming. And if you ever have any questions, you can find me on the fish tubes. Otherwise, as I like to say on my videos, always keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.
Awesome.